Some are taken by people, some are taken with the intervention of government. There are voluntary action, then emissions trading schemes. There are two types there, baseline credit systems and cap and trade system. And thirdly, the direct action. The voluntary action is where enterprises voluntarily engage in sustainability. Partnering with major recycling company TerraCycle, they use Australia Post sachets and other packaging bags. They may be lodged at local post offices by claiming a free box or postage labels. Packaging waste is then upcycled into plastic park benches, chairs, and other industrial items. So these are voluntary actions taken up by enterprises. Another example is Mercedes-Benz, S-Class, and Daimler, Chrysler, the parent company. They use the renewable and recyclable materials for sustainability. They use coconut fiber for headrests. There is community support because there's increased income levels of 1,000 families in poverty-stricken parts of Brazil, which went up by 900%. Because when Mercedes-Benz was buying this coconut fiber from these areas where people live, their income level went up. There's also a renewable resource that would otherwise be a waste product of coconut industry. And it becomes a cost to that producer to dispose it. There's also a savings to the enterprise of 5% in production costs. The coconut fiber provides a lighter and stronger headrest for the customer. Second is internalizing the externalized costs. Here we are looking at the government intervention or the market and the market intervention. We're taking emission trading schemes. Even if a firm itself is not a major producer of greenhouse gases that produces, for example, carbon dioxide, the cost of its input may rise dramatically as suppliers pass on their emissions trading costs. In Australia, coal-fired electricity generation is one of the major producers of carbon dioxide, the most common greenhouse gas. Although greenhouse gas reduction targets are challenging, we should not underestimate the power of the market to drive innovations. It's important that a united international approach is taken to decrease externalities, because the gas emissions begin to be borne by companies, enterprises. It is significantly increase their cost of production. The enterprises those are absorbing externalized costs as internal costs will be at a competitive disadvantage against those who are not doing it. The emissions trading scheme is designed to reduce greenhouse gas pollution by providing economic incentives to enterprises to achieve a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The value of emission trading, that is worldwide, is estimated to be $3.5 trillion US dollars by 2020, and is growing rapidly as countries join the international market. The emissions trading scheme has two categories in it. The first is baseline and credit system. It is where the government issue and buyback credit permits from enterprises. The second is the cap and trade system. Is the right to emit greenhouse gases. And then permits are bought and sold in the market. So the first one, baseline and credit system, there is government intervention. Cap and trade system is market-driven system. Baseline and credit system with greenhouse gas credits are issued and sold to the government. The firms reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, are issued with credits that can be sold to the government. So in that way, they can decrease their cost of production. Funds available from the government or from other organizations act as an incentive for enterprises to seek out innovative ways to decrease emissions. Cap and trade system through greenhouse gas credit at the market is a greenhouse gas credit is the right to emit a certain amount of greenhouse gas. Then government issues a certain number of these credits to key industries such as electricity producers. Enterprises can sell the unused credits, and this creates an incentive to decrease emissions for the enterprises that are typically polluting the environment. As the price of credits go up, cost of emitting the pollutants also increases. So the alternative is to pollute less with technologies becoming more economical and more competitive. Let's look at Australia's position. There was a cap and trade based emission trading scheme that was formally legislated and due to commence in 2010, and it was delayed, but later in 2014 it was repealed by that incoming government. A new direct action plan was introduced in 2014 to replace the former scheme, but with some characteristics of the baseline and credit emission trading schemes. It's called Emissions Reductions Fund that will directly support carbon dioxide emissions reduction activities by enterprises and industry. Then the government will pay for projects that will decrease carbon dioxide emissions at least cost. So the direct action plan works where the funding allocations from the emissions reduction fund is made through a reverse auction that is starting with the lowest cost projects. It identifies a range of possible opportunities to decrease carbon dioxide, such as energy efficient projects, cleaning up power stations, reforestation, and various revegetation projects and projects to improve soil carbon. There are a number of commitments, and these direct action plan commitments are 1 million solar roofs, solar towns and solar schools, 20 million trees to be planted, clean energy employment hubs, geothermal and tidal towns, renewable fuels, greenhouse-friendly program. Australia's emission reduction targets government has committed to decrease Australia's greenhouse gas emissions by 5% below 2000 target levels by 2020. Since coming into the government, the coalition has released the plan for a cleaner environment, and the Clean Air Plan indicates that this target will primarily be reached through the emissions reduction front, which is a centerpiece of the government's climate action policy. The government has indicated that once the budget for direct action plan is exhausted, no further funding will be given whether or not emissions reduction targets have been achieved.